Chapter 16. There had been lizards strolling inside the house of plants, and lots of lizards watering and taking care of the plants. Outside, lizard families were having picnics and lizard kids were playing ball. The whole place had the atmosphere of a park or a zoo. The house of memory was a very different sort of thing. We took a narrow path that started behind the house of plants. There was tall grass on both sides, and the path was dusty. It wound down through taller and taller grass. The grass was spiky. Mosquitoes buzzed around us, and I got a lot of bites. The path kept going downward. There were some scraggly trees and bushes with stickers. We were getting into a forest, a dark one. It wasn't like the forest we had passed through on the slopes of Diamond Hard. This forest was sort of mean and dark and mosquito-y. My nose was full of dust from the path. I was hot and sweaty and sort of scared. I really wish we could have stayed in the house of plants. I wished it even more when I saw the house of memory. It was a little hut made of sticks and bundles of grass. There was a little dirt clearing around it, and there were lots of mosquitoes all around. The whole thing wasn't any bigger than maybe a couple of telephone booths. "This is the house of memory," Reynolds said. "I'll wait outside for you." It was obvious that both of us wouldn't fit inside very well. There was a little low door like the door of a doghouse. It was dark inside, and there was a sort of sweet hay smell that I didn't like. "What's inside?" I asked. "You have to see for yourself," Reynolds said, "and don't think about a snake." I hadn't been thinking about a snake. Up until then I hadn't. Now I couldn't think of anything else. This whole thing scared me. I really didn't want to go inside the hut. There was a sort of watermelon smell that was making me nervous. "I don't want to go in there," I said. "You have to go in," Reynolds said. "It's on the schedule." I didn't want to make a fuss. All the lizards had been so nice to me. I figured it wouldn't take more than a minute to look at everything inside the hut and come right out again. It seemed very important to Reynolds, and he showed no sign of letting me get away without seeing whatever was inside the house of memory. What had he meant about snakes? Why shouldn't I think about one? And why couldn't I stop thinking about one? It's just an old shack, I thought. I was sweating. Then Reynolds did a very unfriendly thing. He just shoved me inside the hut. It was dark inside. I couldn't see a thing. Then I saw something. It was the biggest snake I ever saw, bigger than the one in the Hogborough Zoo, and he was standing up and looking me in the eye, and he was a cobra. "He can't hurt you," Reynolds shouted from outside. "I told you not to think about a snake." I can say for sure that I have never been so scared in my life. I just stood there with my knees shaking. I wanted to run, but I was afraid to move. By the way, the cobra was white. That made it worse. For the second time in 2 days, this time for real, I was sure I was going to die. "Think about a corn muffin," Reynolds shouted, and the snake turned into a corn muffin. I looked at the corn muffin, a regular corn muffin. I thought about the snake. The corn muffin started to wiggle a little. I thought about a corn muffin. It was still. So that was how this place worked. You had to be careful what you thought about. I didn't like it. I made for the door, but the door wasn't there. This may sound funny, but the house of memory was much bigger on the inside than on the outside. I mean a whole lot bigger. It was as big as a barn at least, maybe as big as a football field. It was fairly dark, but there was enough light to make my way around. I guess the light was coming from the doorway, and I tried to make my way in that direction. What is this place supposed to be, I thought. I really didn't like it. Then I found the squirrel. It was my old gray squirrel. Not a real one, the one I had as a little tiny kid. This squirrel really meant a lot to me when I was a baby, and I was happy to see it again. It wasn't just a squirrel like mine, it was the same one. I mean, I used to know every inch of that squirrel, the places where I sort of sucked the fur off the ears and the green thread where Mom fixed it when the stuffing started to come out. It had one original glass eye and one coat button. This squirrel was really broken in, and there wasn't another one like it in the world. Somewhere along the way, my squirrel had disappeared. I never did know what happened to it. To tell the truth, a month didn't go by when I didn't wonder what happened to my squirrel. Finding it like that really made me feel good. When I picked it up, all the old feelings came back. Not that I go around sucking the ears of stuffed animals. It just felt and smelled the way I remembered it. The house of memory. So that was what this was. I walked around in the almost darkness, holding my squirrel by the hand to see what other memories I could find. There were a lot of them. It was like walking around in a store or a museum. I recognized a few memories of mine, mostly baby stuff, my little bowl, my blue blanket, stuff like that. There were a lot of baby bowls that I didn't recognize, too, other people's memories. There were memories that were really strange. I think they might have been memories of animals or even plants and rocks, funny things like sounds, warmth, reddish light. My squirrel and I walked around among all the memories, looking for pretty or interesting ones. Little girls' party dresses were popular. Also scenes of the insides of rooms. There were no people. I don't know why. Maybe the lizards don't collect those. Some of the strangest memories were feelings. You are walking along and all of a sudden you're in a big puddle of warmth or fear or anger or pleasure or a particular smell. Then you step out of it and you're back in the dark looking at somebody's cap pistol. I noticed that the majority of memories were kid memories. There weren't many grown-up things. Also, you can pick up and handle your own memories, but other people's memories are just like shadows. You can put your hand right through them. The one I really liked was a bunch of lions, maybe 20 of them, playing in this grassy place with bright sunlight. They were really great. I could smell the lions and the grass and feel the warmth of the sun. They raced around and knocked each other down and jumped each other and wrestled and swatted each other. They were big lions, but they weren't all grown up. I really liked looking at them. I was really close to them, almost in among them. They were really enjoying themselves, and so was I. I must have watched the lions for an hour. I was sitting in the grass with my squirrel, just sort of relaxing. Sometimes the lions stopped their game and all fell asleep for a while, cat naps. Then they would start up again. Lions are really nice-looking animals. After a while I thought I could hear Reynolds calling me, and I got up and started walking toward the sound of his voice. After a while I could see the doorway glowing in the distance. Reynolds called me about every 5 minutes. I got closer. The cobra was back in the doorway. I turned him into a corn muffin. Then I thought about a cobra with a bag over his head, and he turned into that. I walked right past him and out into the sunlight. Reynolds was waiting for me, sitting on the ground in front of the house of memory, swatting mosquitoes. "Did you have an interesting time?" he asked. "Very," I said. "How does that place work?" "I have no idea," Reynolds said. "We discovered this spot a long time ago and built the hut around it to keep people from stumbling in by accident." "Is the snake always there?" I wanted to know. "Search me," Reynolds said. I guess it must be afternoon. I checked my watch. I had forgotten to wind it. I asked Reynolds the time. He looked at his pebble. "It's 4:37. I set my watch. "By the way," I asked, "how does that thing work?" "What, the pebble?" Reynolds asked. "It doesn't work. We just wear them to show off for visitors. Most lizards just guess about the time." I put my watch in my pocket. "We'd better start back to Thunderbolt City," Reynolds said. "You are scheduled to attend a banquet with your friends and a lot of important lizards. Then we have to make preparations to send you back to Hogborough." Reynolds and I started walking up the path toward the House of Plants. "Did the House of Plants get started like the House of Memory?" I asked. "That's right," Reynolds said. "We just found all the plants there and built the greenhouse to protect them. Probably Reynolds planted them." He meant Reynolds, the old-time hero who started everything on the island. When we reached the House of Plants, Reynolds bought us Thunderburgers and cups of tea from a little stand outside the greenhouse. I saw him give the lizard $2 Agama, but I didn't manage to catch him putting his hand into his pocket or taking it out. We sat on a bench and ate our Thunderburgers. This time they tasted a little bit like flowers. Then we drank the tea, which was bitter, and started walking back to the city. We were halfway there when I realized I had left my squirrel in the House of Memory. There was a big commotion going on when we reached Thunderbolt City. Lizards were running everywhere. I couldn't find out what was going on because they were all talking in lizard. I tried to ask Reynolds what it was all about, but he had become so excited that he forgot to speak to me in English. He just kept repeating the same thing over and over in lizard talk. Reynolds started running, and I ran after him. There was a big crowd in the middle of Thunderbolt City. The lizard band that I had seen on TV was on the roof of a building playing. Lizards were cheering and dancing. Lots of the lizards were holding statues and pictures of chickens over their heads. There were thousands of lizards in a sort of open square outside the biggest building, the one with the golden egg on top. I guess that was the House of the Egg. The lizards were really happy. I lost track of Reynolds when a lizard grabbed me by the hands and started dancing with me. Then another lizard wanted to dance with me, and another one. I was in the middle of 1,000 dancing lizards. They were all speaking in lizard. I had no idea what was going on. It didn't seem likely this was a going-away party for Charlie and Claudia and me. However, the lizards did go all out to be nice to visitors. I noticed that the wrist of the lizard I was dancing with had a flat pebble taped to it. I looked up. It was Reynolds, my guide that afternoon. "What's going on?" I shouted. "Nebel, Nebel, Nebel, Nebel," Reynolds said. "Speak English. I don't understand you. Speak English," I screamed. I shook him by the shoulders. "Oh, yes, of course. I do apologize," Reynolds said. "You don't know what's happened. Nebel, 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 Nebel." Nebel. He was so excited that he slipped back into lizard talk. English, English, I shouted. Oh, yes, sorry, Reynolds said. It's just that I'm so excited. You see, the egg, it's hatched. Reynolds was really so excited that he couldn't stand still. He was sort of hopping up and down the whole time he was talking to me. Another Reynolds appeared. Victor, I've been looking for you. You have to start for the coast soon. Come along and say goodbye to your friends. He took me by the hand and started leading me through the crowd of dancing lizards. Goodbye? What do you mean? I asked, but he didn't hear me over the music and the shouting. It wasn't easy to get through the crowd. We would go a few steps in one direction and then get swept back to where we started by the surging, swirling, dancing lizards. Everybody was patting me on the back and saying, Nebel, 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 Nebel to me. Nebel, 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 I said back. And the lizards laughed and smiled and patted me on the back some more. I still don't know what Nebel means, but I guess it means all sorts of things depending on how you say it. It appears to be the only word in their language. We finally got to a little wooden side door in the house of the egg. Reynolds pounded on the door. Open up! It's me, Reynolds, and I've got Victor with me. The door opened, and we popped inside.